Hello, movie nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, the podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Rebel Moon. You know we're going to talk about Rebel Moon. Like, come on, guys. You know that. In terms of Rebel Moon, I am just going to say, I think that this is going to be more of a spoiler discussion around Rebel Moon than it is going to be a review. So for anybody that has not watched Rebel Moon yet, definitely do that before you listen to this episode. But I am assuming that most people that are clicking on any kind of Rebel Moon review, spoiler review, etc., has probably already watched it, probably already has thoughts. And I really have so many thoughts. So I kind of just wanted to have a discussion with you guys, and I'm hoping that you'll leave me some comments and stuff and let me know if you agree, disagree, and kind of what your thoughts are. So in terms of Rebel Moon, because I knew kind of a lot of the backstory to Rebel Moon, I think everybody is pretty clear on the fact that Zack Snyder had pitched Rebel Moon as a potential Star Wars story to Disney, and that Disney had turned them down. And I will just personally say that I think Disney really effed up by saying no to Zack Snyder in terms of what's going on here. And that, I think, right out of the gate tells you guys what I thought of Rebel Moon. I really enjoyed Rebel Moon. And I might be kind of a small group of people that really enjoyed Rebel Moon, and I'm okay with that. Because I am looking at Rebel Moon from two different sort of places. I'm looking at the sort of shorter idea of it. Was part one exciting to me? Was it interesting to me? Was the story good enough that I'm interested in watching the second half? And then I'm looking at it also from like the bigger picture, bigger world aspect of it. Can Rebel Moon launch a new franchise? Can it launch a new world that I am going to be interested in sticking around and watching? Because I know that Zack Snyder has mentioned that they want to do like spin-off television shows, more movies, that they want to live in this world for a while. And for me personally, both of those boxes were checked. I really enjoyed the world. I think that it was very much lived in. There is enough there. There is enough substance there that, yes, I'm excited for the second part because I genuinely, when I started hearing like some of the critic reviews of the first part of Rebel Moon, I genuinely thought we were going to have a Dune part one situation where the movie was going to like stop abruptly and it wasn't going to like stand on its own or have a cohesive story. In my opinion, it does. In my opinion, I know exactly who the protagonist is. I know exactly who the villain is in this story. I know who all of the key players are. And it wrapped it up really well, I think, in part one, that I could watch this movie again on its own and be perfectly happy. And I probably will, just so that I can like pick up some additional stuff. You know, obviously I am excited for the second part because I want to see where he goes with this one. The only downsides for me with Rebel Moon are, one, I don't think we spent enough time with each of the individual characters that she goes to pick up, i.e. General Titus, Tarek, Nemesis, all of that good stuff. But I don't know, because I do know that Zack Snyder has the intention of coming out with like an extended edition where there is an hour of extra or an hour and a half of extra footage. I don't know if that is where that is contained in. I also don't know if the intention is to do spin-off shows, let's say, or spin-off movies of these characters, in which case those might be stories that we get fleshed out later. So that kind of stuff, that sort of openness to their stories, doesn't necessarily bother me when I'm looking big picture. I think the story does well enough that it did not do like the Dune 1 thing, because like Dune 1, like part 1, I don't think that tells its own story, and I don't think it is ever intended to, but it, you know, like it does kind of take away a little bit for me in terms of Dune, because I do feel like you have to watch both of those sort of together, and we haven't seen the second half yet in order to get like the full story of Dune. Whereas I don't think that that's the case with Rebel Moon. I think you can watch the first one and get a good sort of set up story. And that is what I think this is. I think that Rebel Moon is a set up story, at least for part one. I don't think that this is meant to be like an all-encompassing everything in one shot. And I don't know if maybe that is like what critics were expecting, what fans are expecting. I wasn't. Like, I tuned in to Rebel Moon fully expecting that there were going to be parts of it that were missing because Zack Snyder has the intention of like building out this world. So I was really just looking for bare bones, right? I was looking for, is there enough here to keep me interested and keep me in this world? And I definitely got that. I really liked the character of Tarek. I was all in to like find out more about his story. I definitely would love to hear more about his story. I definitely want to hear more about General Titus's story. I really, really, really did not get enough time with Digimon Hansu in terms of that. Like, I really want to know more about these people. Jimmy, are you kidding me? Jimmy is, I don't know what it is with me and robots. I always end up really, really liking the robots, but Jimmy is my favorite character, hands down. And he is, of course, voiced by Anthony Hopkins. So for anybody who isn't aware of like who Jimmy is when I'm talking about Jimmy is the robot that is voiced by Anthony Hopkins, and he is like the soldier, the king's soldier. I have some sort of ideas on kind of where this story is going. I don't know if I am true or right in any of them, but you guys can let me know kind of what you think. I think Korra, in my opinion, Korra, who is the main protagonist, Sophia Boutella, is who plays her. I don't necessarily think that she is the strongest protagonist to have, just in terms of like character building and stuff, but I do see where he's going with it, and I am interested to kind of see it go full term. I think, personally, and this is just my personal theory, obviously, we know from the first one that Korra's like adopted father, I think 100% is the one that killed the king. I think that is just a non-starter for me. That's just, I'm putting my flag. I'm putting my flag in that Korra's adopted evil dad is the one that killed the king. And because of the fact that he set her up as the princess's personal bodyguard, I personally think that the princess is still alive, because I think that kind of what set Sophia off on her journey of running in the first place was that she didn't kill the princess and that she hid her, or that princess is somewhere. And that's kind of why they want her back. In terms of that, it doesn't necessarily answer the question of why the Admiral, Atticus Noble, I think is the Admiral's name, why the Admiral was okay with like having her killed towards the end of the movie. I'm not sure how that works, but I can sort of see how maybe the Admiral would not know that and only her adopted father would know that. And that's kind of why at the end there, when he sets Noble back on the path of finding her, why he's like, no, she needs to be alive. Because I think that there is a potential there that he's the only one that maybe knows the princess is still alive, and that he's sent out, across the universe or what have you, that the king, queen, and the princess are all dead. He's in charge now. Like, that's, because you don't want someone to be out there with that spark of hope looking for a princess who's still alive. But I think that that is the case. I think that that's what the deal is. And I think that that's why Korra has been in this perpetual state of running, where the second that the Empire, the second that like the bad guys get to her, she basically is just packing her shit and she's out, right? And I think it's because she has this information, or she knows that she has this information that could potentially sort of dethrone her stepdaddy, or, adopted daddy, or whatever, space daddy, in terms of those sorts of things. I will say I was very, very sad by Charlie Hunnam's character, and only because he very much reminded me of the guy from Braveheart, the Irish crazy guy from Braveheart that's like, I spoke to God and he's pretty sure he can get me out of this, but you're fucked. That guy. that is where I thought Charlie Hunnam's character of Kai was going in this. I thought he was going to be a little bit unhinged and a little bit like the fun, the comedic sort of part of an otherwise sad, sort of dreary story. And I was very sad to see kind of his turning point in the story. And I'm bummed that I don't think we are going to see him in the second half, though we didn't necessarily see a total end to Kai's character. I don't know that we're going to see him in the second part of it, or that we're going to get any more of his story in terms of like any backbuilding or anything, because I don't think that they set him up for it. And I think it would be okay if we don't ever get anything else from him, just in terms of who his character was. But I am bummed, especially because Charlie was so nice to me, and I want to, support him and support his characters and stuff like that. And I was just hoping that he would have a bigger piece to this. But I mean, everyone, in my opinion, has done a really good job. I think that Atticus Noble is a really good villain to contend with. I knew something was up with him when he was injecting himself with whatever that gunk was and playing the dirty with squid arms or whatever. I knew that there was something going on with him. So when she quote unquote kills him at the end, I was not at all surprised to see that resurrection happen, because I had a feeling that something was going on with Atticus Noble that we just did not witness yet in terms of up to that point. So I was not surprised by that little twist, that twistaroo. But I really am invested enough in these characters that I want to see what happens. I want to see the second part. I really want some backstories, especially for Nemesis, really for most of the side characters. I don't feel like we got enough of their backstory. And I get it. You've got a very short runtime. He doesn't have a lot of possibility to play around here. But in terms of that sort of thing, I really wish that we had maybe gotten a television series instead, where he could have, set up that world building or gone into some of this backstory stuff, given us some flashbacks, done something like that. But I do also see sort of Netflix's side of it, of them really investing a good amount of money and sticking their necks out and taking a chance on a potential new world, that I can see how they wouldn't maybe want to do that slowly in terms of a television series. But I wish that we had gotten that. And I do definitely hope that we get some backstory television spin-offs for a lot of these characters so that I can see them. But this really, Rebel Moon, I will just straight out say it. Rebel Moon is what I have been waiting for and what I've been hoping for in terms of what I thought Disney would bring to Star Wars. Fresh ideas, new characters, new worlds. And it's unfortunate that what we've gotten from Disney Star Wars is regurgitation of the same old stuff and some pretty poor story writing, in my opinion. And I can see how people would look at Rebel Moon and go, well, this is just a cheap plagiarism of Star Wars or whatever. I don't see it that way. I see this as its own thing. Disney passed on it, right? Disney passed on making it Star Wars. Now Rebel Moon can compete with Star Wars. And I think it's got the backbone to do that. I think it's got enough of a story here to do that, just in my opinion, because this is what I wanted. This is what I've been hoping for. New characters. I will say, I get, I get what Zack Snyder was trying to do with the character of Nemesis. And I get that her weapons were meant to be lightsabers. And they are swords, obviously, because there is copyright infringement otherwise. I don't necessarily understand how her swords do the burny glow thing. I haven't worked that out. It wasn't explained. And the part that she holds on to is doing the Bernie glow thing. And I don't get how she is capable of holding on to them. That is the only like sort of qualm that I'm like, I get where Zack Snyder's thinking was in that, crap, now I have to make this character not a Jedi, right? And still sort of keep to his vision. But that is a little bit of cleanup that I think he could have done or could have explained a little bit differently or a little bit better. Again, I'm not saying that Rebel Moon is like a perfect thing. I think that there are definitely parts that he could have done a little bit differently, did a little bit cleaner. I'm not a huge fan of Zack Snyder's slow-mo thing. I think that it works in some instances. I think that the problem with Zack Snyder, if there is one, is that he does it too often. I think with slow-mo, there, you know, like you have to kind of do it when it makes sense to do it. And I think because he really loves the visuals of slow-mo, that he does it too often. And after, you know, a 2-hour movie or something, after like the 10th little bit of slow-mo, it loses its appeal and it loses its attraction. It doesn't necessarily take away from the story for me, but I just, you know, would kind of hope that he could like cool it a little bit on the slow-mo. I know we're going to get a lot of that probably in the second half, but I am hoping that if we get spin-off series and stuff, it'll be different directors. It'll be people that can carry the vision and still move forward. I'm not saying that I hate Zack Snyder. I don't know. I don't have an opinion, but I do really love Rebel Moon. And I do really think that Rebel Moon has the potential to go toe-to-toe with Disney Star Wars. There's no question in my mind. And if someone were to ask me, would you rather stick with Disney Star Wars or hitch your wagon to Rebel Moon's new franchise? I hate to say it, I really do, because I've been a diehard Star Wars fan since I was a little kid. But where Disney is taking Star Wars, I have a lot more faith in Rebel Moon. And I hate saying that. It hurts me. It hurts me in my heart to say that. But I have a lot more faith in Rebel Moon and the characters that are coming out of Rebel Moon. And I really wish that Disney Star Wars had not passed on the potential of making this a Star Wars story. And that is just what I will say on that. I definitely want to see the second half. I definitely want to know what you guys thought of the first half of Rebel Moon. Even if you don't agree with me, definitely leave comments and stuff. If you guys are on YouTube, definitely leave me comments. I definitely want to talk about Rebel Moon. Let me know what you think. Those are kind of my thoughts on Rebel Moon. I would love to know what you guys thought if you have watched it. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.